Happy Friday, all. I hope everybody's having a good week. We are there. We are with a new session. This was the season 2, session 3. Should be interesting. Want you all to welcome my guest, Grindhead Jim. If you don't know who
Thank
he
you.
is, go subscribe. I'll have to I'll have to edit into the. I realized I don't think I put them in there, but I might have. I think I put your links in the description.
Well, if you search Grindhead Jim anywhere, you'll find me. It's
Yeah.
not too. I make it pretty
I'm
easy.
pretty sure I did, but you know what? I'm not in the point where I can actually look at that right now. So I was like, I thought I did it, but I was thinking about it. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. Losing my mind. So if you are here live, thank you for joining us. If you are checking us out on replay, I really, really do appreciate you spending that extra time to do that, because I know the time is precious. So now that I have you here, we get to figure out where Grindhead Jim fits in the Myers-Briggs Geek Nerd Dork. Okay, so we're gonna go over all of these, and we'll kind of discuss where you think you're at. So, if you have a high IQ or reasonably intelligent, functioning person, and you're socially awkward, you're generally considered a dork. I say this every week. I still don't understand how a whale penis. I'm not sure where that works. I don't. No. Okay,
I don't either.
So, if you have a high IQ and you have an obsession, you're in the geek category. If you have an obsession and you're socially awkward, you're generally a stalker. So, in order to move from geek to nerd, you would just need to be socially awkward. I'm not sure how you would make yourself socially awkward, but if you really wanted
There are
to, I guess you
ways.
could. There are ways.
I mean,
There are ways.
I mean,
You just make yourself
there
creepy.
are.
You do creepy stalking things. I don't know. I don't know how. But to move from stalker to nerd, you just have to improve your IQ. So I guess apparently, stalkers are not considered high IQ. I don't know where I'm not sure where that ratio breaks down. And to go from obsessed to nerd, you'd have to work on your IQ and be socially awkward at the same time. So, and if you're a dork, to go to nerd, you just have to find an obsession. See, I was the dork, so then I went to nerd because I found an obsession, which is, i.e., toys. So you see how that works. So where do you think you fit on that spectrum there?
I'm very solidly in the geek category. I've always tested well with intelligence stuff, and I definitely have a lot of different obsessions with hobbies in my life and so forth. I'd love to think that I'm socially awkward, but I'm pretty outgoing. Whether that is actually comes naturally to me or it's learned behavior, I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah.
My family has referred to me as a loner most of my life, and I'm like, where do you get that from? Just because I don't like your company doesn't mean, exactly. Yeah. So I'd say
because I don't like you doesn't mean that I don't like people.
Right. So I do think that yeah, definitely that geek category for sure.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes though, when you go out, the people can be a bit much.
That is true. I definitely get overwhelmed in certain types of large crowds, but I've learned how to navigate them. And I definitely will open up to anybody who I deem worthy of that. It's just, I go by spoon theory, and I only give so many spoons out a day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's normal, though. You can only do so much.
It's true.
So I'm going to check in with the chat real quick because apparently it's been going off.
Yes, it's hopping in there, man. I love it.
It is. Eldor, good evening. Onryu83, how are you? What's up, Happy? Nolan, see, we are official now as YouTube because Nolan is in the chat.
Yeah.
Oz is here. What's up, Oz? Rhea Black, hello. All right, mostly happy talking with each other. Hyperdelic, what's up? Ed, how you doing? How's it going? Hopefully, you had a good week. Uh-oh. I feel like this is a charge to slide against all intelligent stalkers. Well, Adam, I have news. Yeah, it's assuming that the stalker's not intelligent, which is kind of confusing, right? I was kind of wondering about that. like I said, I didn't make the chart. I just have to work with it.
Low key is trying to encourage them to find a different career path.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Oz apparently stocks buffets.
We have a Chinese buffet right down the street, and I would say that at least 30% of the time, if we're not eating a cooked meal, we're eating there or getting food from there.
What's up, Ken? Fatrid Foo? Hey. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, Brick. What's up? Okay, that's
good to see
fine.
Brick.
You know, I know you got a stream to get on because you and Oz are going on to the Geek the F Out channel talking about Revolution.
I have to see that. No spoilers.
You haven't seen it yet?
I didn't even know it was out until today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I watched a couple episodes last night and then finished it off today. So I will not spoil it for anybody. I liked it. I thought it was great.
But I heard that it was I did hear it was kind of Rise of Skywalker-ish, and then it kind of rolled some things back and did another thing. And I'm like, whatever.
There's a lot of status quo changes for sure.
Okay, fair enough. I will definitely check it out and
describe that.
I mean, if I have any fun with it at all, it'll be time well spent. Like that's all that matters.
And that's, you know what, I try to enjoy things for what they are,
rather than
that's the trick.
Lambast them for what they are not. Yes.
Yeah, it's realizing that it's not made just for me.
Exactly.
That's the trick. I had to have self-reflection. I was on a stream with Brick and Adam, highly articulated, and we were talking about my distaste for certain Star Wars films.
Sure.
A singular Star Wars film in specifics. But the more I discussed it with them, I had to do some self-reflection and come back and say, oh, but it's not made for me anymore. That's not my Star Wars. That's this generation Star Wars, just like the, episodes 1, 2, and 3 were my daughter's generation's Star Wars.
I actually have a video coming out about that exact concept. Yeah.
Yeah. So it has to change and evolve with the times in order to make it relevant now and into the future if you want a new generation of people involved in it.
Exactly. If these properties we love so much, if we want them to live beyond us, they have to change. They have to update. They have to do something to rope people in. Otherwise, you're trying to tell the same stories. And if they're not relatable, no one's going to latch onto them but us. Then they have no worth anymore.
Yeah, it's what'll end up happening is they'll stagnate and die.
Yeah, which I don't think any of us truly want.
No, I don't think we really do. So one of the things that I do is I talk about the importance of play, also as being in a playful state of mind. Those individuals that do that tend to live longer, be happier. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I focus on is joy and happiness, and I'm trying to focus on play as that gateway to that. So what I do is I define a play state. So I'm going to give you that definition, and then I'm going to ask you a question about it. So a play state is a state of mind where one is absorbed in an activity that provides enjoyment and a suspension of a sense of time. Given that definition, when was the last time you played?
Earlier today.
There you go. So, when you were a kid, was the play structured? Was it unstructured? Was it, I have to build these huge battle scenes? What was that like as a kid when you were playing?
I think it depended upon where I was with the collection of toys that I had. I was not someone who tried to mix up different brands or toy lines. I liked to create my own stories within the toy lines that I had, because I had a little bit of everything, and some I had a lot more of. Like the big one for me was Superpowers Collection, and their tagline was "You decide what happens," and I fell into that. Masters of the Universe with you have the power. Same thing. I would watch a cartoon or a film, and then I would just, in my imagination, sometimes I would do the sound effects out loud. Most of the time was all up here because the sound effects in my head sounded way better than what my, nascent vocal cords could produce. And now I can do it with the best of them. But I would say that I was trying to do storytelling without really knowing what that was.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was so, yes, it got to a point where I was so fixated on this is the way this universe is for me. So if I bought something or I was given something, like the example I'll use is the Hall of Justice from Superpowers collection. That's the Hall of Justice. Even though my imagination was vast, I refused to imagine it as anything else. I took the Hall of Justice over someone's house to play, and he literally begged me to let it be the Batcave, and I couldn't wrap my brain around it. I said, if you really want it to, that's fine, but Robin's going to ask why it looks exactly like the Hall of Justice. You go right ahead, kind of a thing. So definitely headcanon, but I was really glued into that for some reason.
You had to keep the universes separate.
Yeah.
So Grindhead, little Grindhead was he was the multiverse of toys. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. And whereas now I think when it comes to photography, and it's certainly at this current moment with display, it's almost the opposite for now. Because I like the juxtaposition. You know, there's a reason I have 3 or 4 Velociraptors in 6-inch scale, so they can interact with all my 6-inch figures. They can all poopy their pants. Like, oh my god, a Velociraptor, you know, kind of a thing.
Exactly. Clever girl.
Yes, yes.
Do you remember how play made you feel as a kid?
Yes. It's certainly like you talk about your synapses firing. I can almost feel my brain growing. It made me really joyful to have the opportunity to tell these stories of these characters I only got to see for 20 minutes a day or a half hour a day at most. And to be able to have the ability to create my own stories and explore that world and really stretch the boundaries of my imagination was wonderful. I was a voracious reader. And I felt that play really took that a lot further for me. And certainly, as many kids in our generation did, I rode my bike everywhere. And so like play for me was in my room. That was the inner sanctum. I could close the door, play, have my private time and do the thing. But when I went outside, I was out there to ride the bike and explore the world in a similar fashion, at least mentally. So I always felt like when I was inside, I was expanding my imagination. When I was outside riding around, I was expanding my knowledge base of my surroundings and having experiences that I could also then use to inform play later.
So now that you have that kind of idea, when was the last time as an adult that you felt those ways?
When it comes to the latter, when I'm talking about like riding a bike, I get that feeling a lot when I go to a new toy store or convention, or I see something new in one of those scenarios. But the former, a lot of times it's when I'm formulating the idea for a new video, or I'm trying to solve a problem creatively with my 3D printer. Like I need something that does XYZ. I don't have a model that's out there that can do this. How can I take an existing model and slap them together, or just, you know?
Oh yeah,
I'm very good at taking things and making them do things they're not supposed to do. So a lot of that, the tinkering aspect, I think is really the closest.
The Frankenstein 3D printing. Yeah, I've
Frankenstein anything.
Everything that I've done I do a lot of Frankenstein 3D printing right now. A lot of my 3D printing stuff is all Frankenstein together. It's this and that. So, are there anything? Do you play differently with your toys now than you did as a child?
Absolutely. Just in the sense that as of now, because I have a display set up right now. I don't have a toy display set up right now. The only shelf behind me, there's only 2 of them that would fall into that even at all. And that's this Star Wars one right here, and then the dinosaurs on the bottom shelf right here. Everything else isn't done yet. And that's a source of frustration for me, because it's a matter of finding the time and the energy at the same time to do it, and I just haven't gotten to that place. But I will say that anytime I get a new toy, I'll sit there and fiddle with it and kind of mess around like he's a lot of fun, and then put him on the shelf, and then that's that. But even once everything is out of the package, oh, Brick, cheers, man. Love you to death, brother. Have a good show. I will say that once everything's out, I don't know what's going to happen. I might start doing that, but the difference, I think, would be I'm probably going to start doing photographs or video and doing scripted content with that to kind of like fully realize the play.
So so you're going to play with the toys in a way
I would
meant to be played with.
That is the hope. That is the hope. I don't know if I actually will, but I really want to.
I think that would be an interesting dynamic, because I think there's, Toy Domination, he does those play videos where he puts everything together, but his is like super structured, and it's, everything is in this place, and this place, and this place, and it's all structured, and there's a battle, and it's, coordinated there.
Yeah, what I think I would end up doing is something that's more for humor. So like a drunk Superman video, and then, or something like that. Like, or, forming some kind of a almost Robot Chicken-esque or Twisted Toy Fair kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when you were playing with your toys as a kid, who won the most battles? The good guys or the bad guys?
It was probably even Steven, but if you put a gun to my head, I'd say probably the bad guys. And the reason behind that was, like, I loved a good cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So, like, on Tuesday, like, Megatron wins, and then on Wednesday, Optimus Prime comes back and whoops his ass. Kind of thing.
You had to have that that teaser at the end where, you think he's gonna, And
exactly.
I think a lot of that was the way that the stories were told to us, because that was kind of how it was. It was that way in comics. You'd get a payoff issues down the road of a reveal of this, or books are that way. Movies and television, I mean, they would stop at a commercial break. Right before the commercial break, you'd have some tension in the scene, and then go to the next thing. You have that nice commercial break to make you think about it. Now it's weird when I go back and I watch videos that had commercial breaks in them. You can see that they were written specifically for that commercial break, and it kind of it pulls you out a little bit sometimes when you're watching it.
It does.
Like, oh, yeah, that's disturbing.
I'm gonna get to see the last few frames of this over again when they come back. Yeah, and as I now look back on, like, I have a lot of cartoons on DVD, and one of my biggest pet peeves is that if you went to the trouble of putting together this DVD box set, how about you spare me the commercial break wraparounds? How about you just cut those out? Because I only need to hear the
G.I. Joe, the G.I. Joe one where they have the rap. Oh yeah, that makes me crazy. And now back to your show. Why is it there?
Why? Yeah, because in my brain, my first degree is in organizational psychology, and I do bean counting when it comes to time and efficiency and stuff like that. So in my brain, I'm going, okay, this is, every time I do this, it's at least 15 seconds at this last, and it's 2 to 3 times per episode over the course of how many hundreds of episodes. If I want to binge watch this, how many hours of my life am I wasting on this?
Exactly.
It's maddening.
Just fast forward.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on a couple of your toy lines as you had as a child, and you said superpowers, masters. What were all of the toy lines? So what else are we missing here? Because you sounded like you had quite a few different ones.
I did. I don't remember a time when there wasn't Star Wars toys in the house. I was born in 1977, and I was born the day before the first movie came out. So we always had Star Wars stuff of some kind. There was always some kind of Spider-Man something. So certainly Star Wars was a big one. Motu, right from the very beginning, like that first year I had Castle Grayskull for Christmas and stuff like that. Definitely got really hardcore into Super Powers collection. Certainly G.I. Joe Real American Hero was a big one for me. Transformers was a huge deal. And those were like the biggest ones. And then you kind of like, certainly there was Mego stuff around. I loved Mego as a kid. Didn't have too many of those, but I loved what I had. But I also had like around 85, 86, 87 in there. That's when a lot of like what I'd call the second wave of 80s toys kind of started happening.
Yeah.
Where it was, okay, these big lines have happened. Now we're trying to continue on. So you had like Sky Commanders, Air Raiders, Power Lords. I had a lot of Black Star, but I got them late in the game because they went on clearance and they were He-Man-esque. So all my non-immediate relatives would buy those because they were close enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You could make it work.
Yeah. And I remember there was a toy line, Riders of the Storm or something, Rider Pan Tang, something. And there was they had these vehicles that were just like a cart at an amusement park with a head on the front of it. One of them was a devil. The other one was like a Grim Reaper skull. And I remember getting them, and I loved them to death. They're 1/18 scale. I'm like, these are great. Yeah. Like they have no story. But it's my aunt that got them for me is like really religious. And I'm like, why would you get me like skulls and devils and shit? Like, what is this? Yeah.
Maybe she figured it would scare you to,
Did not have that effect, let me tell you. But so just to kind of turn for a second, make sure I'm not missing anything. I did have Secret Wars stuff quite a bit. Little bit of the Ghostbusters around the second wave. And later in life, as I was getting a little bit older, the Ninja Turtles were like the last toy line to hit really hard.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I did some Toy Biz stuff, too.
So, your collection that you have currently, as far as the toys, did any of this survive from your childhood, or is this all new collection?
All new acquisitions. Although I have some, obviously, replicas from my childhood, of course. Nothing survived. My parents gave away or sold everything up until a certain age in certain intervals because we had to move a lot, military family.
Yeah.
And you got to travel light. But they never prepared me for any of this. Never had those conversations with me. Well, I'll just show up one day and they'd be gone. They're like, well, you haven't played with them in a while. I'm like, yeah, but I was hanging on to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Superpowers one was the one that hurt the most by far because it was, I don't think my parents understood it at the time. But Superpowers, that first year they came out, when I got those for Christmas, like they hit the nail on the head and got me everything I wanted that they could find. And the display under the tree was like something out of a movie. And that was a toy line I got super invested in. I loved it. It was like a friend. And then so when they got rid of those, it was a big blow to my psyche. Hey, Largo. And then when other stuff went was like why? Like, just tell me what's going on, man. Maybe I'd make a different choice on what to get rid of, and invariably I would have, but
give you that option. My ex-wife and my mother colluded to sell my G.I. Joe collection for $75, including the flag. So
you could buy a small country for what those are worth.
Yeah, exactly. But so are there any toys from your childhood that you've gone back and got?
Oh yes, very much so. So I have the entire first and second series of Superpowers collection, the vintage, which encompasses everything that I had as a kid from that line, except for 1 or 2 figures from Series 3. And to be honest, I'm not willing to pay what those figures go for. The third series is rare.
Cyborg and
I did not have a Cyborg, but Plastic Man, he's about $80 to $90 figure. I don't like Plastic Man enough to pay that much. So I'm hoping McFarlane will come out with it because we just got a Hal Jordan Green Lantern
I would imagine
in his
eventually
line.
He will. But it'll be after you get 50 Batman repaints and 250 Superman repaints, and
unfortunately, that's how.
And nine flashes, and I know. I got the first 2 waves. And then I
Yeah.
started, I'll pick and choose. That's pretty much all I'm
Oh
going
yeah.
to do. I don't need a repaint. I need one Batman. I need one Superman. Need one Wonder Woman. I'm good other than that.
Yeah, I've got I've pick and choose a lot of that line. Thankfully, I've either been able to find it myself or have very good friends that have found me stuff. But one thing I think is really funny about that line is that you're already starting to see like which figures are going to be the Golden Pharaohs and the cyborgs of that line.
Yeah.
So like by the time we're 70, 80 years old, Batman Who Laughs is going to be worth like $400. Watch.
Well,
Because
I
it's going to
guess
be
it's
hard to
good
find
to
because no one wanted them.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that how that works? Weird, because it was kind
It's
of like
crazy.
the stuff that just sat on shelves and then went to like clearance sections, and then
Yeah. It's nuts.
that stuff will end
You
up
know,
being worth more, later in life. It's
it's
ridiculous.
so crazy.
So, are there any if anything in your collection franchise-wise that's not, an evergreen property? Anything that's
I would,
like a niche property?
well, I feel like Motu Origins kind of falls right smack in the middle because it is a modern toy that harkens back to the original.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't, strictly speaking, say that I got it because of my childhood, but I did. And I have no interest in the vintage versions of those toys, so long as they all come back out in the Origins line, which Mattel Creations will see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel Legends is definitely new because there weren't a lot of Marvel toys up until we were in high school, and
I
those
mean,
weren't that good. I'm sorry.
you had this the
Secret Wars.
Secret Wars, and then there was like this long lull until the Toy Biz era.
Yep.
And then
And again, they weren't that great.
no, they weren't. But we bought them. We
We
bought our
did.
5 Wolverines every wave and our 3 Cables because
Well,
I'm a
yeah.
sucker.
And that's why I kind of got out of it. I got a
Yeah.
Spider-Man, I got a Venom, and it was waiting for a Carnage forever, and then I couldn't find one. Then the Spawn figures come out, which were better, but
Yeah.
not by much. Those were pretty chintzy toys.
They are.
Um,
I have the first couple waves, and they're
and
very difficult to pose. They're very difficult to keep standing. It's just like
exactly, and it just got to a point where my room at my parents' house at the time, just the way we had it laid out, and I couldn't see another way to lay the room out. There wasn't any place to really display something like that. They just kind of hung out, and for a lack of a place to put them, without them just going into a bin and putting them into the closet, I just said I don't need to have these right now. Knowing that it wasn't that I wasn't interested in them, it was just that this is beyond impractical right now. And I was picking up drums at the time, and I needed my money for equipment and sticks and stuff like that. So I just kind of made that shift at that time.
Well, I mean, it's all about the priorities at the time that you started, right?
But as far as like other toys, like I have a lot of Star Wars stuff that I didn't have as a kid. I got some stuff that I had as a kid, like behind, like back here, you can't see them because they're covered up. But I got a Cloud City car from Bespin, which is original vintage. I got a TIE Fighter. I never had a TIE Fighter, but I did have a Cloud car. Never had a Millennium Falcon, but getting that was huge for me. And an X-Wing and a Slave One. Yes, I said the S word. But I also I'm not married to the vintage versions of these characters.
Yeah.
I go for the best version that represents my childhood. That's my collection. It's like I want something that represents my childhood in the best way possible. I don't need to spend my retirement fund getting stuff that's exactly the same, because some of that stuff was crap. I'm sorry. So I go after what works for me. Yeah.
And that's an understandable thing. I mean, I think that's the way kind of my collection is, because I have 1, maybe 2 vintage things in my collection, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have the Spawn figures and the, all of those X-Men figures from the 90s, but, I have, like Daredevil and a couple others, still on card, mind you, on one of them.
And then, of course, I went real hardcore on Action Force. I still am. And yeah, Giraffe, you missed it totally. And G.I. Joe Classified. You know, like I have some of the G.I. Joes I had from when I was a kid. There's no way I'm going to be able to get them all. So I'm just kind of I've made peace with that. So I'm doing what I can with what I have, and yeah. So it's I'm constantly re-exploring like what it is I have.
So we're going to go through your collection then, and we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about in here.
Sure. Right up front, I want to be very clear to everybody that this is a practical display until I get all this stuff unboxed and then get them re-displayed the way they're supposed to be. So this is not
they're up and
how
off
it's
the
meant to
floor
be
for the most part. That's what you want,
exactly.
Right?
And I'm trying to make it look at somewhat aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
So how many horror movie figures do I have? I have the entire Jada Toys Universal Monsters line. I have a NECA Freddy Krueger, a NECA Jason Voorhees, and I have the Savage Lands, whatever you want to call it, the Motu inspired Pinhead, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and Leatherface. I think those are all my horror figures, and unless you count Aliens, I got a bunch of those right there.
Yeah, you could qualify it.
Sure. So those are all in there, and the majority of those, I got a good deal on a lot from Gojatron. So big ups to him because I love those figures and the way they interact with other stuff. So that first shelf there has got my Castle Grayskull, which has been in the box since September of 2021. I have yet to open it and put it together, and I hate that.
Yeah, mine's in my garage, and it's still in the box. I've never opened it.
Yeah, I get that.
It's more for like I was gonna put it in a diorama, so it'll be one of those ones that I get to way at the end.
I get you. Yeah. So on that first shelf, you got the Grayskull. You've got a bunch of carded Motu Origins figures. The Migos are very special to me. It's an all original Spider-Man. An all original except for the I think it's the gloves on Captain America are not original, but the rest of it's original, and those were gifts from Jimmy Salzberg. Those belonged to him and his brother. Those were their childhood ones. And I had both of those as a kid, so to have them now and to come from a really special source is very special to me. And there's some like Ratchet and Ironhide getting their chests blown out in the background there. You can't really see because of the angle, but that's a fun set.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah, like you know.
And that's the 2-pack, the Prowl 2-pack, right? It's Prowl.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that they come with those little like half-ass dioramas. I really enjoy that.
You know what? Sometimes it works great for just a simple display if that's all you really want to do with it. And
in a situation like this where I'm piecemealing and then different lines will appear all over the place, like everything's spread out for the most part, it works. And on this shelf, obviously, we've got a bunch of Indiana Jones figures, which I gotta be honest, they're not as bad as the general public would lead you to believe, but they're not great either. However, as a huge fan of the franchise, I'd rather have a meh figure than not have any opportunity to get them at all. So I bought a bunch of them. Bunch of Legends stuff. Certainly Aliens vs. Predator from Leonard.
And there's
I really should
dog there.
Yeah, that's from the Leonard line. That's from Alien 3. I really should make it so he's biting Toad because I hate that guy.
There you go.
Yeah. All of that shelf is boxed Action Force, and then on the right are 3 boxed Sentinels from the 87 X-Men line.
Okay.
Yeah. And down there,
the Mythic Legions kind of.
Yeah, those were sent to me for review, and I never reviewed them. I got to send them to their owner. And the rest of it is a mishmash, but most of that mishmash is varying degrees of Real American Hero shells.
Yeah.
And then on the far left, you can see some carded vintage collection of Star Wars stuff.
Yeah. You have a whale, an incomplete whale over there. If I see that.
Yeah, I got to print all those parts.
I'm assuming this one you did so you could see the top shelf, which was the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I still can't figure out what that thing is on the left.
Oh, that's the
Okay,
the
that's the
Bat Cave set
Okay,
from The Batman. Yeah, and it was
gotcha.
I got it for
Okay,
$10. It's a great little set.
yeah.
Like that's the
All right.
Guardians of the Galaxy 5 or 6 pack
The
or whatever.
5-pack, yeah, that they
Mm-hmm.
had at Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got through Nerdzoic for a good price. So
Oh, there was a point where they were selling them pretty cheap. Whoa, what's this up here?
oh yeah, that's a DC Classics, the Mattel
Okay.
stuff that you got a Steppenwolf and a Cyborg. And then I've got okay, so horror figures. You got
Hannibal
Toxic
Lecter.
Avenger, Migo, and Hannibal Lecter there as well. Yeah.
All right, then we got this one.
Yeah. So there's a menagerie on this shelf. Let me tell you.
It's definitely busy, that's for sure.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So going, I guess, from the bottom up. I've got like the Mobat there, or okay, we'll do it that way too. Now that works.
You said bottom up, so
I meant from on that shelf.
on the
Either way,
shelf up.
it's fine.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I got a Mobat there, an original Mobat, with a Wolverine, a Hiss tank, and an Iwo Jima third-party thing that came out. It was G.I. Joe related. That the Badger gifted me, which I love, and I've got a Leatherneck and Sergeant Slaughter on there. That'll eventually get fully populated when I get more figures out of the cases. But I also have back there some Mattel classics, a Parademon, Martian Manhunter, the Joker. One of my Sentinels are just kind of hanging out going, none of you scale with me except for the G.I. Joes, so I'll sit over here. And if you squint, you can see a Napalm Death figure back there. And then we've got a repackaged vintage Short Fuse.
Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah, he's repackaged. Yeah. And then behind that bottom shelf is the Batmobile from the Flash in 1/18 scale, or 1/12 scale, I should say. And then there's Godzilla Mezco 5 points up there. And I got both sets. They're like just squished together. And then you got some DC multiverse. I got a Superman and a Robin. Probably not in this picture. We'll use it on the next one. Below that, I've got three collector case from G.I. Joe Real American Hero that were gifted me from Billy Wifta's childhood collection. And so they're full of figures, and I'm scared to death to break them now. And then I've got a bunch of the new Marvel Hero, Epic Hero line. Mm-hmm. So I've got a Spider-Man, a Venom, Carnage over there, along with a Hiya Toys Xenomorph and an Anniversary Cobra Trooper. They're all like working together to kill this thing. Yeah, RC and Kickback sitting there, and a couple scaled up mask figures that were gifted to me, and a classified Crimson Guard, then Optimus Prime.
Isn't that not Jada? That's not Jada. What is that one? Jack Specific? No. What's the company that was doing those?
These are customs, from what I understand. For what?
The Jazzwares?
I don't know if those are Jazzwares, because the ones that I got looked like they were resin cast customs.
Oh, okay.
Because they fall apart like crazy. Like they barely stand. They're fun. And then I've got the Kraven the Hunter and a cell-shaded Spidey back there. I got lucked out on the price on the Spidey. So I was like, you never have too many Spideys. That'll be on my tombstone.
I can see you can never have too many Spideys. You got more Spideys.
You don't even know, bro. I have so many Spider-Man figures. That is the Jada Universal Dracula. Yeah. And it's like a generic Amazon coffin that costs like $10. And I just love the way it looks. You got a Marvel, and of course you've got those two Spideys, which are covering up a bunch of other Marvel Legends stuff. In fact, behind the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is an Amazing Fantasy 15 Spider-Man. They're just hanging out. Yeah. And then at the bottom here, we've got more a newly acquired Mutt Junkyard, and Riddler and Lex Luthor and Ultra Magnus and the Mutant Mayhem sewer playset, which scales nice with the Playmates reissue Turtles, which is why I bought it.
All right. So we got a Firehouse now. I'm assuming that's vintage.
It is vintage. It's been restored though with some modern 3D printed parts. And then that's a vintage Wolfman from the line, and then everything else is carded modern reissues.
Okay.
So you see a second Cobra Hiss back there, and these are all DC multiverse. We've got the Nightfall Batman, which looks a lot like a Neil Adams, which is why I bought him. A proper Tim Drake, the Superman, and then the Red Robin, which I think I'll just make him a waiter at a restaurant because of the name Red Robin.
There you go.
And your Michael Keaton Batman as well.
All right, so next one.
So this, what this is the most out of control shelf that I have, because behind all of this are more figures of the same line of Motu, and there's an entire She-Ra Crystal Castle back there. It's just sitting there, covered up by all this.
I remember seeing it when you were doing lives, and I was like, "Where did the Crystal Castle go to?"
She just got covered up by more box toys, man. And so there's a bunch of various waves Motu figures. The Duplico is very prominently displayed because he's Duplico and he's hard to get. So it's kind of like, I got Duplico, you know.
Yeah.
There's a Gambit.
Vipers. I find that interesting because there's
what?
another Viper on another shelf.
What are you talking about?
Viper.
Green.
On the throne.
Fangor?
Here. No. Viper.
Oh, Lady Hydra.
Yes.
Yes, I have two Lady Hydras. The reason I have two Lady Hydras are two reasons. One, the first one that I got, her elbow is fused, and no matter what I do, I cannot get her to bend her elbow.
Ew.
So I bought a second one, and I'm eventually going to, with one of my spare heads, put a different head on the one that doesn't work. So it's a female Hydra agent or something.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's Viper. It's I know her as Viper, so
That's fair enough. And then you got Gambit, a couple of Steel Brigade soldiers, and fun stuff. So in the front, that's all of my core class Transformers in one jumble standing. Like they're trying to pose for a photo and no one's taking the picture. Yeah. Exactly. I love these things, and then I have these.
They're great for having that representation of Transformers, and they don't take up space.
Exactly. So those I can go absolutely insane with and not worry about it, and then I can pick and choose the Voyager class, which I have a fair amount of those, but there's a definite end game with those. I basically need to get a Bumblebee, maybe some Dinobots, and I'm happy. But with the core class, I get everything from my childhood that comes out, everything, because they're just too much fun. Yeah. So these turtles is a mismatch. I originally just wanted to get these red bandanaed turtles, and that was all I was going to get. Put those on the shelf. That's my representation, and I'm happy because I know what a deep dive those could be. Then friends of mine found the Playmates reissues for super cheap, and I was like, screw it, I'll get those. Then I got the van, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going in on those. We'll see more of those later. And I got the BST AXN Android Krang because he scales, and so I'm really happy about that kit. But then you got the 2-packs, the Classics reissue 2-packs in the back, which were a gift from Jim Largo. Because he was like, you have to have these. And the main reason he got them, as he admitted to me, was that he didn't like the idea that my Playmates reissue Mikey had very brittle nunchucks. He basically bought them for the weapons. And I was like, that's a good reason. And I'm kind of at a loss of how I'm going to display these in the long run. But I do know this for sure. When we build our house, my day-to-day office is going to have a more dedicated, very curated display. So like any Masterverse figures I have, larger scale figures will be in there. Those will be in there in like a dark thing, and then that kind of thing. And then in the garage, which will be the big toy room, then like the larger diorama displays will be there. So they're all going to have a place. And here, more Marvel Legends and more Marvel Legends and more Marvel Legends and some Transformers hanging out behind them. You got the Bratz car. Yeah. Got to have that Bratz car.
McFarlane Deluxe accessory set.
Yeah. That's newly acquired. The X-Men 97 multi-pack. That was a gimme from Santa Claus because it was on sale. couldn't say no to it at the price that Santa got it for.
Well, isn't that the only one where you can get Storm, right? And that
that's Gambit. Gambit's the exclusive figure.
Yeah, I couldn't remember which one. There was a Storm that was exclusive with X-Jet.
With right? Exactly.
Yeah. And then of course
we got the packs. Yep, on both of those, I waited till the West Coast I bought full price, and then the Spider-Man one I waited till it got down to like $65, and I was like, I'll pay $65 for a second black suit Spider-Man and the Silvermane. The rest of them are just going to stay in the box because I have no interest.
Yeah,
I just really wanted a Silvermane.
And sometimes it pays to be patient.
It does.
And this is your top shelf. I'm assuming this is where
yes,
all the vehicles are.
Well, just those 4. It's a facade.
Okay.
So it's just, I'm going to put those there because they're pretty to look at, whatever. In the graduated display, is that a Spider-Man head piggy bank? Yes, and it's the second one of those I've ever had. I got one at a Goodwill one night on a lark for like $5. And then when I moved to Texas from Iowa, I was about to pack it and it fell and it broke. And I said, someday I'm going to get something akin to that again. And then just a couple months into toy collecting, I was on an eBay binge and I found the exact same thing in better condition than the one that I had. Got it, put it in the pantry, and didn't touch it for 3 years. We get here while I'm unpacking stuff, and I find it. I had forgotten that I rebought it. I almost cried. I was so happy to see it. It was really cool. And then the battle armor, the Battlefield Warriors set, that was one of those ones that was very hard to get, and really still is. That was one of those exclusives that just was very touch and go. But I love it because the vac metalized. You got the alternate heads. You got the little Grayskull thing, which is really cool. But I have like 3 or 4 of those Prince Adam sets that people sent me. One I bought for myself, and people was like, give him more Sky Sleds. And I'll gladly take them. And the Prince Adams are good for customs. So very happy. And then you got the Flocked Panther.
I mean, I got a bunch of this stuff for cheap. I think I paid $15 for my Point Dread.
Nice.
At Target. I was just like waiting on it. I was just like, you know what? I don't know that I want it. And then it was like, at $15, yeah, I'll get it. You know, at that point, it's worth it.
For me,
it was kind of one of those things. I don't know that I needed at 50.
Motu is one of the ones that I have big FOMO with. Because I am. What's funny about it is that I was dedicated to being retail complete, and basically, unless they release anything new in the vintage line retail, I'm retail complete now. Because the cartoon versions, like Skeletor here, they're not even called Motu Origins anymore. So technically, I've fulfilled my collection already.
There'll be some more.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, Mattel Creations, but it won't be retail. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. So these shelves, upper left is this is some Japanese chibi little Munchkin kaiju set that I bought right before the pandemic hit, and I got a really good deal on them. And that was like the first toy that I bought for myself as an adult. It wasn't really but it was just to buy. It was far as like with the intent to collect. That was later in that year, or 2021 rather. Then I got Puma and Grim Reaper, which I got good deals on from my buddy Carl. Marvel Select, Incredible Hulk, which was insisted upon me by Jim Largo, and I'm glad he insisted. It's very, very cool. The Silver Centurion Iron Man on a flying stand. That's my favorite Iron Man armor, always will be. And then the 2-pack of Bruce Banner Gray Hulk, which that's just a fun set. And you won't be able to see it, but you'd have to zoom in to see what's next to him. That is a 3D print of a statue that is, I believe, the University of Baltimore. It's Jim Henson on a park bench with Kermit the Frog.
Yeah.
And I have all the Diamond Select Muppet stuff, but the only ones that are making their appearance right now are Sam the Eagle, which is my favorite, and Rizzo the Rat.
Yeah.
And a Black Series R2-D2 and a Black Series C-3PO. You got Moondragon and her, I guess, resurrected, estranged father, Drax the Destroyer. a Masterverse He-Man, an MCU Thanos, and then a vintage Snake Mountain that I need to finish restoring. But which is funny because
I was wondering if that was in the process of getting restored, because I was like,
I've got all the parts, I just haven't done it.
Yeah.
I've got everything, and then I've got the Origins one on the bottom, and it's like I'm kind of at a loss of how I want to display them, but I have a couple ideas.
And you have that slight. You know what's funny is, I hate saying this, but this Galactus is technically vintage.
Yes, it is, because it's 90s.
Yeah, I was just like, that's just mind-boggling to me.
And that was a gift from Wilhelm Toy and Hobby, who knew I really wanted a Galactus, but I wasn't going to pay the money, and he had one extra, and he gave it to me. I'm so happy with that. I can't wait to display it with all my Fantastic Four.
So here's your Star Wars show.
Mainly Star Wars. You have the Slave One. These are all Power of the Force 2 because I prefer the look of these. I was super happy to get them. They're all complete. George keeps falling over. My Black Series George Lucas and Stormtrooper form. I think he's just drunk. That's got to be what it is. He's drunk.
It must be.
Yeah. And then you got all the figures behind it that are sealed, and you got the TIE Fighter and the Cloud Car and some various things. There's like a bootleg Spider-Man in there somewhere, and there's MCU Happy Hogan.
Power of the Force, Han Solo and Carbonite.
Well, because I didn't have a Carbonite to go with the Slave One, so Mark sent me that to help out. And then we got the Origin Snake Mountain, the last Sunman release of the 3-pack, which I was really happy to get. King Hiss and Thunder Punch He-Man. They're just there to move. And then at the bottom, like there's a little dragon guy, which you might have a better shot of in the next picture. But
okay.
No, one after this. So the top, we've just got my Wind Raider, Ecto 1, and then you've got this 5-point Slash figure that Gojatron sent me, and he's really cool. I have yet to find a good place for him, but with all these carded figure stands that I have printed, I'm probably gonna just throw him somewhere and nice and prominent. And then behind him is a John Stewart Green Lantern from Superpowers Collection on card.
Cool. All right. I don't know we'll see if that next one. Nope, this is another shelf.
Well, it is another shelf, but that dragon you might see at the bottom. So
okay.
So on the top you've got Hall of Justice parts, Darkseid Destroyer parts because I'm building them, and then Arkham Knight Catwoman that someone just gave to me because they're like, "Would you use this?" I'm like, "I guess." And then this was before I was collecting toys again, and I just hung on to it, and I'm glad I have it because that's a really good Catwoman.
Yeah, it is.
The 66 Batman figures that are here, these are just the boxing glove whatevers. I got this as a gift from All Things 80s Dean, and I'm like, I don't know where to put them, so I just put them there. And then below that is a 112 Mezco Spidey, which was one of the first things anyone ever sent me. Largo sent me as one of my most prized possessions. And then of course you got McFarlane Superpower stuff hanging out there, along with it's a Dark Knight Collection Batcopter that's been custom painted to look like the Superpowers one, but it's got a unique like sparkle paint on it, which is really cool. And then I have a Robin Hood Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, I was gonna say I see a carded Robin Hood Prince of Thieves sitting back.
Yeah, so I bought him because I thought I needed a bow for my green arrow, my Superpowers collection. I ended up finding a bow and arrows and stuff, so I didn't need it anymore. So now I just kind of have it.
And now there's a thing called a 3D printer that will let you do that, and now you don't have to worry about it.
I have yet to find the files for that damn thing. I really need to get those files. This is the closest thing, other than the Star Wars. Like it's kind of like they're just kind of hanging out. They're like, but there's an attempt to make some poses here of various things, because these were toys that came in. I couldn't not open them. So I was just so happy to have them. So you got a Xenomorph attacking. One could argue they're attacking the villains, or maybe they're trying to jump over the villains to get to the heroes. Who knows? But it's a who's who. It's very weird Marvel menagerie, if you will. Then you got Hawkeye with. I'm very proud of myself that I didn't cut his whole hand off, but I actually notched his fingers so he could hold the arrow. which is a very easy thing to do with a sharp razor, guys.
Yeah.
They should have done it out of the box, but I also understand why they wouldn't. Mockingbird is clearly seen better days, and the Vision, I don't know why he's like that. I'm guessing my wife put him like that. No shade to my wife, but I'm just saying I wouldn't lay him down like that, I don't think.
Well, it appears the Vision may be drunk. I don't know. Maybe
he might be. He might. I mean, he's that pale.
It is possible.
I always kind of joke that he was dehydrated Vision.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. And then below, yeah, you got the dragon down there, which is it's a kid's toy that's motorized and he roars and all this stuff. But it was a dragon. He was like $15.
Is it like the Robo Alive one?
Yeah, it's the Robo Alive one. And I need to get the ice one to match it.
I was so tempted when I saw that at Ross. I was like, ooh, that would work for Masters.
He's a lot of fun.
Nope, can't do it.
And then I got the Mega Colossal Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Giganotosaurus, which I love having them. I hate displaying them in terms of like just the logistics of it. Yeah. Oh, he won't even. I can't get him to fit inside the damn shelf. He's too tall. Yeah. But I'm probably gonna put those on top when I move things around. And you got 3 Velociraptors and a Pterodon, and which are all meant to kind of hang out with other toys. And then the shelf above it. Oh,
hang on.
We skipped one.
We did. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you got a big sampling of my Turtles classic reissues. So you've got Leatherneck, Shredder, Osteoporosis Shredder anyway. 2 Foot Soldiers, Bebop, Rocksteady, Krang. Then you got just a smattering of Action Force, and I got custom Scarlet that Badger made for me, and an eel. And I don't know why he's always looking down like he's going to jump, but he's a weird dude. And I got the Knucklehead that I have to fix. I keep meaning to plastic weld that one part, and then I have the Spider-Man and Amazing Friends set, which I cannot bring myself to open, but I will eventually. And then a Watch Dogs statue that was gifted to me because I love that game. And
I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, that's the main character of the first one. Yeah. And this is just meant to show like how much of a mess it is in here right now. Like there's the whole bottom shelves are just covered up, but those are all those shelves are just facades. Anyway, they have like a couple things in front and nothing behind them.
Yeah.
So all that stuff has to get.
I can't say anything. You should see my customs to be done disc.
Oh, I almost sent you a picture of the closet. You open the closet door and there's 7 bins high of loose figures. So like people were like, that's a great looking display. I'm like, oh yeah, wait till I get my real figures out. That's the funny part. Like it's not even it's barely half of my toys.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that to brag.
We get to that point where we have there's always more somewhere.
Yes. Like I just recently bought some 3-ring binders and page protectors. And what I'm going to be doing is taking all my card backs that I've saved and putting them into those page protectors and keep them in the binder. So that as I start unboxing and making displays, I have a safe place to keep them. And it's going to be tedious, but I just need to set aside the time and the energy to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how everything works, right?
It's true story.
Find the time, got to make the energy and go from there. It's kind of like my dios sitting on the table right now.
Absolutely.
I'll get around to it. I've ordered the stuff. I've got foam clay coming in tomorrow, so I'm going to be messing with that for some areas. And then I've got plaster of Paris that I got in yesterday. So
yeah, the big goal that we have for like the next, I'd say 14 months, because we are going to sign another lease here, and then we'll buy a house. We'll start the building process in the fall with the hope of moving in by the end of the lease next year. The goal is to get everything out of bins and packaging and get them on the shelf the way I want, so that when we move into the house, everything's at least packed together, so it's going to be easier to just put everything back up, kind of a thing. And then the dioramas will begin. So I'm going to be going to quarries and all this stuff.
Yeah. So it's always interesting because when we go through people's collections, it's touchstones. There's things that you can kind of see where they're more animated or excited about. I want to talk about this, or I want to talk about that. So with your toy interests, does a community kind of influence it at all? Just the community itself? Or is there more of, I'm going to collect it, even if I'm the only person collecting it kind of thing?
Well, I would say that when I started out, because I knew I had limited space and only so much time to invest and money to invest, I was very particular. I was going to get Motu Origins. I was going to do Superpowers. And at the time, I don't even remember what the third thing was that I said I was going to collect. And there was a bunch of stuff that I just wasn't going to collect because I thought it was impractical. And over time, through various generous gifts and insight that I gained from the community, like they start to like creak you in. Like I would not have any Real American Hero if it wasn't for the community. They started it, and I'm grateful. Don't get me wrong. And it's a fun project to put it all together, and I'm very happy to have them. But I would not have dovetailed in with that at all.
Yeah.
But then also on the other side of the spectrum, you have like the Indiana Jones stuff where everyone's like, "Oh, these suck." I'm like, I want them anyway. That's a toy line that got away when I was a kid. I'm not letting it get away from me this time, and I'm happy to have them. And if they come out with a better version of them down the road, I'll probably get those instead. But for now, to me, it's less about reclaiming my childhood and have more so than having avatars and symbols that remind me of the good times on the shelf. And for me, that can take many forms. But the community has helped me with that along the way.
Yeah, obviously I can see there's quite a few of this. This was given here, this was given, and that can take you down rabbit holes. We find that, a lot of times that our friends in the community, they are our worst enablers in some instances. I've been accused of being an enabler more than once. So So you mentioned that there was a toy that you got, first toy that you got as an adult. I love the end of a cold. So have you continuously collected, or was there gaps in there?
There's a huge gap. So basically from the time that I stopped doing the Spawn thing, aside from being gifted like a random Halo figure and a couple Terminator figures in like 2003 or 2004, I didn't buy anything for myself. They were always gifts. A couple, and I hung on to them, and then I eventually sold some of them because I needed money or whatever. Yeah. And I didn't have an attachment to them. So I didn't collect anything toy-wise until it really was 2021. Like I bought a couple toys in 2020 just because I was trying to support some friends that were doing a toy show and whatever. But I didn't have any kind of like designs on continuing to collect. I would not have called myself a toy collector at that time by any stretch of the imagination. 2021 rolls around. The Iconicon was coming up, and I kind of, at the same time that was revving up, I accidentally fell into that community of toy collectors by way of research for a video I was doing, and just binge watched a bunch of videos. And I was like, man, I want to feel like that. I want to open some toys. Yeah. So I was thinking about it and how I would go about it. And then during Iconicon, it was Reclaimers Vintage had a couple things for sale, and I got a Superpowers collection Lex Luthor and a Steppenwolf. So I count those as the first ones I intentionally bought as an adult with the intent to collect. And ever since then, it has been nonstop.
So do you think that maybe a lot of us started collecting again during this chaotic situation? I think for me, I needed something more positive, and it had nothing to do with the situation. It had to do with dealing with my son and life in general, because I hadn't done any hobbies. Yeah. In a really long time. I managed to go all last week without coughing. Tonight I want to cough. But I think that safety of childhood, or at least pseudo safety of play in childhood, And I think getting those feelings as an adult, I think that's one of the reasons we see a little bit more of those people gravitating back to quote unquote childish things.
Yeah.
I would argue that they're not, but that's nuance. I think we want that safety of that moment because it takes us back there.
Yeah, and as far as that goes, like it was kind of the situation I found myself in during the pandemic, where I had started staying in a hotel, an extended stay, due to circumstance at the time, and the intent was to be there for maybe 3 or 4 months, and then move into an apartment. And then because of the way the housing market was going at the time, like I'm stuck there.
Yeah.
And because the internet connection there was so horrible, I couldn't stream anymore. And I streamed on Twitch for 7 years or so, pretty consistently.
Yeah.
And when that kind of time sink is taken away from you, something had to fill that void. I think toys just kind of naturally happened. Plus, I was working and making more money than I'd made in many years. So I was like, I have the opportunity, I have the time, I have the money. It just kind of happened in that way. But I wouldn't necessarily blame the pandemic. I think I would just blame the resurgence of the community because of the pandemic, brought it back into my purvey, and here we are.
Yeah. So what is it about toys that makes them desirable as a hobby for you?
I think that it really does come back to having good memories. I've brought up my parents and the specific Christmases several times. And that's because they're both no longer with me. And so I think at the time it was, I want to reclaim this stuff. I wanted to have good reminders of those things. I wanted to be able to display that, and kind of, I love to share what I collect, and that'll definitely feed into what Giraffe's question is here. When I have something and I amass a collection of something, I want to share it with people, not show it off, but share it. Yeah. I want to watch the movies, listen to the songs, play the games, show the toys, play with the toys. I think toys were such a big part of my childhood and my adolescence that it made sense to kind of round out the collections I was already amassing. I have every CD that I've ever bought.
Wow. Okay.
I have a significant portion of vinyl from my childhood with just a few new ones. And the only reason I started getting new vinyl was because my old band that's still going strong was starting to get reissues on vinyl, and I was getting them for free for obvious reasons. I'm like, well, if I'm going to display my stuff, I want to display some of my favorites too. So I started getting just a couple of those. But like in high school, I collected some Marvel cards for like 8 seconds, and I was like, this is stupid. But I did comics for a long time. I still have a lot of comics, not nearly as many as I used to. I have some stuff from childhood comics wise. The actual copies, not many, because we had a flood in my parents' basement. But some survived, and I'm happy to have those. And I have some I've rebought and stuff like that. But I have a 13 by 10 foot wall in my living room that's all physical media of movies and video games. Wow. And I'm not really a completionist when it comes to the video game consoles, but I've got almost every console from the Atari 2600 up to now. And I have games represented from almost every single one of those consoles in there. And movies.
I still have most of my video games. The only thing I don't have my regular Nintendo. I gave that to my sister when she was, living with my dad. And then my Dreamcast went with an ex-girlfriend.
Well, emulation is catching up to where it doesn't really matter anymore. No. I tend to play the games on emulation more than anything because it's more convenient, but they're nice to have. They're nice to have for sure. Like my wife and I started watching Double Dare. Like we're binging Double Dare, and I'm so into it. And it was such a nice little thing. I went ahead and I bought a copy of it on NES, even though the game's kind of crappy. I just want it. I just want to have it and just kind of have that reminder on my shelf.
Yeah.
But I'm well over 1,000 movies at this point. I'm approaching that number with video games. And again, these are curated collections, not just random buys. But I've always collected those. And with physical media starting to really be on the downturn, it's very sad for me. I think toys, I'm going to double down on toys because within 5 years, you won't be able to buy new movies anymore.
Yeah. It's going to be, there's a definite change in that market.
It's horrible. It's horrible. But yes, Giraffe, yes.
So yes, you did.
Yes.
And Largo has a point here. Member berries ain't a bad thing when they connect us to positive stuff. No.
It's true.
That's true. So are there any collection rules? See, I have a collection rule. This is my one and irrefutable. Cannot go past this. It would have to be a really, really specific thing in order for this to happen. But I cannot buy anything that costs more than my first car. As a single item.
Okay.
As a single item, mind you.
Yeah, so, I'm pretty close to that. In a sense, now that you mentioned it, I'm very frugal and cheap when it comes to this stuff for the most part. Although I don't mind paying full price, I pick and choose when I buy. So yes, I have some very specific collection rules, and that is, if I can't tell you the reason it's on the shelf, I don't want it. That's the bottom line, and that applies to every collection. I have to be able to tell you why it's there, and if I don't have a good reason for it being there, out it goes. Have I been to the National Video Game Museum in Frisco? No, I have not. But I have many friends that have been there, and they're like, it's okay. But it's cool. I've seen pictures of it and stuff, and I don't know that I'd make a pilgrimage to that. I would.
Now, is that in San Francisco or actually Frisco, Texas?
Frisco, Texas. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't go to Frisco, Texas. I know you live in the Arlington area, but I still wouldn't go to Frisco, Texas.
No, not a fan. When my wife and I were driving here from Oregon, we went through much of the northwest part of the state, and I saw that there's a fair amount of people living there. And the only question that I had was why, because it's horrible. There's nothing. It's not that there's nothing there. It's that there's lots of nothing to get anywhere else, and I can't stand that. I lived just rural enough in high school that it was a 45-minute bus ride to school every day. But we weren't far from civilization. Just the school zoning laws were so weird that we just happened to go to the school that was the furthest away for no reason. Yeah. And that kind of, between that and having lived in downtown areas and different city areas, I like being close to everything, but I also don't like my neighbors up on top of me. So being in DFW, there's a lot of places where you can get the best of both worlds and not pay crazy amounts for real estate. So hopefully, knock on wood, we're going to be okay with that.
So are there any things that you don't do with your toys currently that you want to?
Yes, actually. The short version on this is that the goal of getting everything out and displayed loose the way that I want it to be is so that when I get toys come in, if I'm going to make a video about it, I can. If not, I'm just going to unbox it immediately and put it on the shelf where it's supposed to go. Like that, I think that feeling is going to be very gratifying. Like, okay, boys, here's your new brother or sister, and let's figure out where you all fit together. And so I think the joy of getting new toys, I maybe have 40% of what it should be. I get to marvel at it and maybe pull out a box, look at it, and I got to put it back in the box and put it down on the floor or over here or something. So I think that I would like to be able to just have things as they should be, because looking at all this as menagerous and colorful as it is, this is not even close to what it should be. And I need to get it fixed.
So you have some figures that are in box and they're going to be in box permanently, right?
Very few.
What qualifies it as what says this is going to be specifically in box?
I don't know that there's a specific qualifier, but I will say that if I have a duplicate of something that is very special to me, I might leave one in package and display it prominently just to have it. But on the other hand, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that if a superpower cyborg came to me carded, I will rip that sucker open and he will be loose. Just to kind of give you the scale.
Yeah.
Like right now, this cartoon classic Skeletor, I didn't mean to get this. I forgot to cancel the order because I kind of decided I don't really need them.
Yeah.
And I made the decision that those are going to stay. If I have those, they'll stay on card because I don't need them out. And they're beautiful. I like the way they look. So I don't need them to be loose because of my display aspirations. So maybe that's the qualification. If I have them and they look good, displayable in package, and they don't serve a purpose loose, leaving them in package is preferable in that case, I suppose. But as far as things staying in the box permanently, very few things. And it would just be a matter of circumstance. I'm probably more qualified to answer that question in a year, to be honest with you.
So what draws you to a figure? What's the thing that makes you say, I got to have this one?
Typically, it's got to represent a character or a property that I have a connection to in some way. And or it has to be something that connects to another toy I already have in some way. So maybe like a lot of the Marvel Legends stuff, they didn't produce when I was, interested in figures, or maybe I don't have a huge affinity for that character in the comics, but they fit well. Like Psycho Man. I don't have a huge affinity for Psycho Man, but he's part of the Fantastic Four line. He's a striking figure, and he was inexpensive. So I was like, that one makes sense because he's an important part of the pantheon. So we'll get him. On the other hand, I loved the Fantastic Four growing up, and that was the first wave of Marvel Legends that got announced for pre-order after I started collecting, and I was elated. I was like, because I hadn't ever pre-ordered something before, toy-wise, so I didn't know how popular these were going to be. Like I was waiting, like to pre-order them because I was scared to death. Like certain other things, they're just going to sell out. They didn't, and I got them, and I loved them. As far as like what makes me go, I have to have it. It's got to make me smile for some reason or another. It's got to, whether by virtue of filling out something that I have to make it visually more appealing, or just being something that I really, really enjoy. So those are the two main factors.
Does the lore of whatever's associated with it, does that kind of influence it as well?
I would say so, because you'll notice that most of my stuff has a deep lore behind it, because almost everything has a film, a cartoon, or a comic book attached to it in my collection. Almost everything. I don't have any like presidential figures or anything like that, although I wouldn't say no to a Bill Clinton figure, but only if you could get an optional Monica Lewinsky character.
There you go.
But but yeah, I think the lore has a lot to do with it because
you need an oval off his desk too. So
well, I can 3D print that. That's no problem. Monica Lewinsky custom coming at you. A little bit of paint there, a little bit of liquid paper, and I won't go any further. But no, I think the storytelling aspect of it is very important to me. Not just the story that was told to me, but also the story I can tell about why these characters are important to me. I'm one of those rare people that have a lot of MCU Marvel Legends as well as comic ones. And at one point, I was like, ooh, I'm going to do mirrored dioramas to where all the characters are like mirrored on either side. And I decided that I wasn't going to go that deep into the MCU, even though I have a ton of them. And because of that, I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that anymore. But I'm going to do something with it because I love the MCU. My wife loves the MCU, and I also love the comics too. So, and if I tell you why I love the comic versions versus the MCU versions, they're two very different things. For me.
Yeah.
So they both have equally impressive reasons for being in the collection for me. So, but I think the lore, both in their canon and within my personal lore, my history, I think have equal importance. Absolutely.
So if they go and they change lore, and it's a direction that you don't like, Would that affect do you think that would affect your choices in whether or not you would collect those?
I think to a certain degree, yes and no. Because let's say, for example, I don't know, I have some Jurassic Park stuff. But I don't have any of the human characters, and it's not because they changed the story. It's just because it felt weird to me that I have these dinosaurs from multiple different eras of the films, but I would only really be interested in having the characters from the first iteration of each movie from each sect of it. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense. So I kind of decided early on, like, nah, I don't really need those characters. I want the dinosaurs, really. So in the sense that, like, it doesn't work in the confines of what I want.
Yeah.
And I also won't typically get a character in triplicate or quadruple if you have each. Hey, Zazel. I tend not to get the Indiana Jones from every single movie, although I do have a bunch of them. That's just as an example. I wouldn't normally do that with every single property, even though I have done it. But typically, if I can get one good representation of that character, like my favorite definitive one, I'm usually okay with that. So I don't know if it directly speaks to the lore or not. But like the MCU is going in some directions, and I'm like, I don't know if I would do this, but I'm still enjoying it for the most part. So I'm still picking and choosing here and there. But what I am finding is that the figure offerings from the MCU, they're very cherry picky for me right now. I don't need everything because I don't particularly like the way the figure is representing the character, less so than the lore. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. So are there any vintage lines that you would love to see redone with today's aesthetics?
Yes. I think Mask is long overdue for an upgrade. I had a lot of Mask as a kid. I loved them. I'd love to see Sky Commanders again in a form that doesn't require you to, like, strangle yourself with strings going across the room.
Oh no! By all means, let's put those in the living room with the kids. With the really strong nylon cords, that'll work.
I love those toys.
Happen, right?
Well, let me go down the list. Well, we said we wouldn't go dark. And then also, like, Air Raiders. I think Air Raiders, the designs on those toys were really something to behold. And I think that just doing a repress of them and with a little bit more intricate paint. Exo Squad would not be for me, but I understand why people would want those. The only vintage lines that come to mind that haven't gotten a resurgence that I would like to see, maybe. Okay. This is going to be a controversial statement. I think that Thundercats should have an Origins line, meaning that you should be a more accessible line to get that scales well with other 1/12.
That is $60.
Right. Like the Super 7 Ultimates, like, they look nice, but I didn't like Thundercats enough, even as a kid, to go all out. I had like 2 of their figures. And also the LGN figures sucked, to be honest. Let's call it what it is.
They do.
So I think if someone came out with an Origins type price point and playability with the Thundercats and just did the whole line like that, I think they'd see a lot of cool stuff. Silverhawks, these are all done to death, though. That's why my answers were like Mask, Air Raiders, and like Sky Commanders, because I really like those Centurions.
Building on that question of the things that you want changed, but what about, like, you're talking about changing companies too? Because honestly, if we're going to do that, we would have to change a company for those. Is there any toy companies that you would think would do better with a given line? So you'd like to get changed to, it's kind of like Ninja Turtles. Everybody gets a Ninja Turtles, license. All you have to do is, like, pay them a little bit of money. Oh, you get a Turtle license. Might as well be Oprah giving out turtle licenses.
I got to be honest, and this is going to, again, some people are really going to be like, what is he saying? But almost any of those toy lines that I just mentioned, if he was willing to do different scales depending upon the toy line that I mentioned, I think Valaverse would be the way to go for almost everything I just mentioned, because his attention to detail, his focus on customer support and quality, and availability. I trust him way more than I trust almost any other toy company out there. Mattel, I'm always looking over my shoulder when it comes to dealing with Mattel. But generally speaking, the quality is high, and they do make good on announcements. They haven't announced anything they haven't actually delivered yet. So I like them, and I would love to see them do more stuff, but it's clear that they're a little overwhelmed with Motu right now. And I don't think they have the bandwidth to do more stuff. So I think Valaverse would be a really good place to be. Or if Ramen Toys could get a license, could get licenses for some of the stuff that they're doing, and find a distribution model that would allow them to bring their prices to something a bit more accessible, that would be interesting. There's a lot of great people out there doing great stuff. But, obviously the Mythic Legions guys are doing some really cool stuff, but their price points are ridiculous. And, Four Horsemen are who they are. They have a great pedigree, but they've kind of made their niche. So I wouldn't trust them with any of the toy lines I want because they're going to charge me too much for it. Whereas Bobby Vala has lowered his prices when he has every right to raise them if he wanted to make more profit. But I think that would probably be the best option for that at this point.
Yeah. So, are there any buyer's remorse or regrets in your collection?
I've been pretty lucky with that so far. I would say that I've had reverse buyer's remorse because I almost bought the Unicron that HasLab put out. Even though I wasn't collecting toys at the time, I heard tell of it. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But I am looking at a third-party one this year, and I'm scared to death because these are not inexpensive items.
No.
But the company that makes them has a good reputation. Yeah. That would be the biggest potential for that. But it comes to toys like buyer's remorse, like, oh man, nothing springs to mind. But I'd say the closest thing might be the 6-inch Indiana Jones stuff, because the availability of it has been such that I haven't been able to get all the stuff that I want in a timely manner, because there's a relatively small pool of what I want. I want to be able to complete all the builder artifacts, and I have certain characters I want, and after that, I'm good. Yeah. I'm not asking for a lot, and for some reason, I just cannot seem to get some of those figures, and it's a pain in the butt. That's the closest thing to buyer's remorse that I've had.
Yeah, nothing like an unfinished bath, right? That just makes you crazy.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So, kind of in that theme of regrets and remorse, do you experience burnout with your toy interests? Because I know that you're getting ready to kind of change the format of your channel, and I think you're kind of at that point where just talking about the toys is kind of a burnout kind of thing, at least a little bit anyway.
Yes, and I experienced something similar when I was just talking about video games, for example. That's why I started introducing like a talk show kind of a thing on when I was streaming that kind of stuff, because I wanted to please myself a little bit. With the toy thing, I think it is born of the industry is becoming so predictable at this point. And they're putting out a lot of stuff. It's very similar to what it felt like to be a kid in like 87, 88, where they're putting out toys that no one asked for.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want any of this, most of this crap. The classifieds for me is running itself out of ideas. Like, there's a very small number of figures that I feel like I need. I got the HasLab Dragonfly coming later this year. I will get a retail Hiss when it comes out. At least one, if not two. If they ever do a classified size Mobat, I'll probably get that, and that would be it for me as far as the vehicles go. Probably. But there's not a lot that they could put out that I'd be like super, super excited about.
Mm.
And with Motu, I can see the end of that tunnel coming. There's very few things coming that I have to have. So many of the things that I want, I already have, or the stuff that's coming, it's going to take a while to get there. So I haven't really stopped getting toys. I got a toy yesterday. It came in the mail. I get stuff pretty consistently, but it's nowhere near the cadence I used to get stuff at because there's just not that much stuff out there. So because of the fact that there's just less new to me things to get that I really want to go after, yeah, I'm a little burned out, but I also more so, I don't want the focus to be on those toys so much that I begin to resent the collection.
Yeah.
Because I really want to have fun. So I'm kind of doing the change on the channel to keep engaged and passionate about that in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I curate and get this collection the way that I want it, I will find a new spark and have different things to talk about with the toys as I move through that. I think that one fire will feed the other kind of a thing. Yeah. So I think I have a somewhat unique perspective in that I did start collecting so late, but I also had a massive amount of passion and drive to get so much stuff so quick. You know, when I tell people I've been collecting less than 3 years, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, most of the stuff I got in the first 18 months. Yeah, and most of this stuff is just from like the last year. And then everything else is in there. And like, I'm not kidding. There's like 7 huge bins of loose bagged figures. There's a ridiculous amount of stuff in there. And when I see it all out there and I can just pick one up and play with it whenever I want, like that's going to be the coolest thing. So I'm hitting burnout with this era of my collecting just by virtue of the roadblock that I have hit. But maybe once everything's out, if I see that I have some space where I can finagle some stuff, I might start getting some fun ideas and doing some cool things.
Is you feeling a little bit stale is what you're saying?
Yes, very much so.
Needing refreshing.
Yes.
So is there any point where you see yourself not collecting? What
Probably
would that look like for you?
I think I would never stop collecting, generally speaking. I'm always going to be getting something. Because even when they stop making Blu-rays, for example, there's still going to be back catalog stuff that I want. Same thing goes with CDs and certain kinds of vinyl, video games to a certain degree. When it comes to toys, as long as someone's making something that's cool, I'm going to find a shelf to put it on. But with the stuff I currently collect, there is an end point for almost all of these lines for me. Superpowers, as long as Todd keeps making decent stuff, I'm going to keep buying them and add them to the collection and have a good time with it. But when he starts putting out stuff that I don't want, I'm going to stop buying them.
Yeah.
Same goes for Mattel. Same goes for everything else. What will probably happen, my philosophy about collecting toys will change a little bit when I am in my own house and I have this big 2-car plus garage that is just for displaying toys. And I'm thinking more from a diorama, an action display set piece. There's going to be things that I'm going to go back and dip my foot in the water into other stuff I would not otherwise have gotten. Whether it be, I'm only using this as an example, like a USS Flag or something like that, where that would make sense. Like, there's no way I'm getting a flag in here.
Yeah.
If someone gifted it to me, it would go in the closet right now. So I think that change of surroundings, change of circumstance, I think those all have a lot to do with it. My wife is insanely supportive. In fact, she collects. She's starting a Barbie collection. And we're having a ton of fun discussing what her lady layer is going to look like. And right now, she has this really cool idea of doing like a cubic display. So like just cube shelves. And having little dioramas of like things she loved from her childhood. So like childhood memories of playing with the toys. Recreating childhood memories with the figures. Then also then there's going to be a whole row, she said, of like chronicling our finest moments. So there'll be one of us getting a meeting, one of us getting engaged, one of us getting married, so forth, which I thought was a really cool idea. So I'm living vicariously through her with some of that passion that's bubbling up to the surface. So I don't think it's ever going to go away for me. It's just a question of where that focus ends up being.
Well, you kind of touched on it, but we're getting close to the end. I've really got two basic questions left.
Okay.
And there's really the two that get kind of the heart of collecting in and of itself. The second one is more about, the point of my show. This one is what I call it the magic question. And in psychology, we would call it the magic question. We would ask a client, if all of your problems went away today, what would you do?
If
And
all
we
my
get them to
problems
kind of talk about we get them to talk
okay,
about their problems and their difficulties and their stretches. So for collectors, there's two things that are the biggest problems, right? Space
money.
and money.
Yeah.
So if space and money weren't an object for you, what would you collect and why?
Okay. It would be extensions of what I already have. So I would go ahead and go after that third series of superpowers collection just to shut up YouTube commenters. That'd be the number one reason. Okay. I would also endeavor to get a representation of every toy that I can remember having as a child, every single one, and just have those as a display. Like, here's my childhood rack of stuff that doesn't fall into the rest of the collection, just kind of a thing, right? That'd be cool. No, I would not get any overpriced statues. You shut your mouth, Drive. There's no way. And I would probably troop build in a way that I'm not interested in doing right now. Those kinds of things. So I think it would be more of going wide on display and really get nuts. Largo, I'm going to get a Justice Jogger eventually, just because it's for the lulls. The right one at the right price is going to come along and I'll pull a trigger. It's going to happen. And I'll make fun of it. And matter of fact, I already know what kind of machinima video I would make with that. Like, I could just see like Cyborg pointing at the Justice Jogger going, you idiot, why would you get that? It'd be fun. But again, it would be extensions of what I already have, doing this types of displays that taking the stuff we saw in the toy stores where they had a fish tank and all the cellophane and like really did it up, and taking that to like the nth degree. And I would also, and this is going to sound a bit cheesy, I would go out of my way to make sure that everyone that I loved in and around the community had all the toys they wanted to. Because seeing someone get something that there is just unattainable for them is the best. So I would use my powers for good.
Well, it's one of
like toys for tots, but for adults.
Yeah, well, we do this in our little group of people that you hang out with. We do a random act of kindness. Now, most of the time, it's getting them something that they can't afford or wouldn't be able to get, or they were having this or that. So we kind of pool our money together as a group, and we get it for them, and we ship it to them, and they get this nice little picture that has the the group logo on it. And then recently we did one for a member of our group. Their home, I guess their water heater boiler blew up. And they just didn't have the money. They've been showering in the cold. No one knew, at least not. They didn't share it with anybody. Right. They didn't ask for help. But within 3 days, we had the money to pay for the boiler and fix it.
Nice.
I mean,
that's awesome.
That's what this community should be about overall.
I agree.
It's taking care of each other. And it's one of those things that's important. Because, if without this community, I know I would be a different person.
Same. Absolute same.
And there's some unique things that happen. So I kind of have, I guess I'm going to say I'm going to have, we'll go with the next week. We'll go with this one. Any pickups? Any pickups this week? I have absolutely nothing for the first time in forever. I have zero pickups. I was like, I don't
Well,
have anything coming in. I don't have anything going out. I'm awesome.
so I did just get that Skeletor last week,
Yeah.
and what came today or yesterday
Oh,
was
nice.
this MCU Black Widow, which was
Yeah.
on sale for like $20, and just for the display stand and the blast effects, it's worth that price.
Exactly. I'm looking at that going, yeah, I would just want it for the blast effects and the
And
display
and
stand.
but the face sculpt is actually really good for
Yeah,
Scarlett
it is.
Johansson. So for some of the older bucks that exist of her, it's nice to have a good face sculpt of her.
Mhm.
And plus, I can't I can't turn down a good deal, dude. I just can't. Sure, Largo, you can have a little mosh pit, my little mosh pit pony for sure. I didn't know you were a brony, but now I know.
It's all making sense now. I'm just saying.
Well, it is.
All making sense.
It's at some point in the last week or two. I don't think I made a big deal out of it on the show or anything. I haven't done the show for a couple weeks. I got Ultra Magnus, the studio one, the
Oh,
86
nice.
that came out. I was looking at the War for Cybertron ones. The prices are really reasonable on those. He's going to be in robot mode anyway. But I saw that one, and I had him on pre-order in multiple places, but between Christmas and having lost my job, I couldn't justify it.
Yeah.
And then as things got a little more stable after Christmas, Nerdzoic had him come in at retail price, and I said, you know what? I want him. I'm going to get him. This is going to put a smile on my face. Let's get him. Yeah.
Sometimes you got to take those little happiness, that little spark of joy. But with that in mind, this is the most important question I ask.
Okay.
Regardless of whatever else that we ask in the show, this is the most important. What did you find joy in today?
Several things, but I'll keep it as short as I can. Every single day when my wife gets up, because she gets up way later than me no matter what time I get up. It's just the way she is. And she comes out for the first time of the day with our dog, because our dog is glued to her. That's the best part of it every day for me. Number one. So I always find joy in that. And I'm not just saying that. It really is. My face lights up and stuff. And then they go out for a walk and they come back and I'm like, "Hey, babies!" And I get it all over again. It's really cool. Yeah. It's like a miniature Christmas morning every day. It's fucking awesome. I got one in. But also, I appreciate that. I also found a series of videos about the rebooted Planet of the Apes series, and this guy really was dialing into what the stories were about to him from a storytelling perspective. And it opened my eyes not just to why I loved those movies to begin with, but also it kind of reflected some things that I've been going through lately. And it really it gave me some video ideas, and it kind of sparked me a little bit.
Yeah.
So that gave me a huge amount of joy. And again, people are going to think I'm being cheesy, but I was really looking forward to this. And because it is such a really cool format, and I've had a blast talking to you, and it really brought a smile to my face, and it kind of makes me, on one hand, looking through all these and those pictures close up, like forcing me, like, look at it, like, was both parts like, oh, I forgot that was there, and also you really need to get on this and get this looking the way that you want to look, because how much happier are you going to be when it really stop complaining? Like for 9 months, it's been like, so
the stress and anxiety from it being not the way that you would like it is causing you to procrastinate to do it.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly what it is.
It's a cycle for you. That's, I can see it kind of working there.
Yes. 100%. Because there's going to be more chaos before there's order. And also, I saw that comment, Jim. I really appreciate that. You did all that on your own. As far as I'm concerned, all I did was give you a swift kick in the ass a few times.
Sometimes that's all it takes, is someone giving somebody a swift kick.
It's a lot of people that are part of like my core group of support and community on YouTube and outside of YouTube as well have started their own channels since I kind of came on the scene.
Mm.
And whether or not I had anything to do with that, it makes me really happy that they're doing it, because everyone I've talked to in this community has a unique perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that the best thing you can do in this space is bring your uniqueness to it. Don't worry about being similar to somebody else. Find your own niche. And probably more than anyone, Largo has taken that thought process and ran with it. He has some of the most unique toy content I've ever seen. And if you're not subscribed to Largo's Lair,
in general, the unique content, it isn't just toys. I mean, it's
right.
There's left field, right field. It's somewhere in the middle, and then you get the.
And he's just, what he's doing is he's brainstorming in public, which is such a ballsy thing to do. And I love that he's doing it. And I think that it's just a matter of time before a larger audience catches on. And because he's got a hell of a unique life experience, a really cool outlook on life. And I love seeing him flourish, along with everyone else too. You know, that's the biggest, that's what brings me a lot of joy too. When I just see someone having a good time, that I know I see them happy.
Exactly. It's just the whole thing about this is, if it's really a community and it's a group of people, shared common interest, it should be about lifting each other and engaging with each other in a way that's positive and focused. And, you know, it's not about tearing each other down. And I think that's one of the things that made me start this, is because I wanted to really get into the heart of what people do when they collect. Why are they collecting? What is it they're collecting that means something to them? You know, what are those touchstones that they're trying to find? So it's one of those things, and it's one of those things that I had to do, because I did that when I started. I started collecting again in 2022, and then, you know, since then it's been a cavalcade of random figures everywhere. And then I started doing custom figures, then I started doing dioramas. So I mean, there's some depth and growth that's going on for me. So
I have resisted the custom figure thing very hardcore, just because I know that that's a slippery slope to get down, and I've seen that through my friends. But on a long enough timeline, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's for me, it's relaxing. It helps me relax and chill. I don't get twisted about it. I mean, if it messes up, it messes up. I'm not going to die. I try to do something that makes me happy every day. I try to find that joy. But we are out of questions. So why don't we tell people where you're going to be? And
sure,
what you got going on?
So you can find me on YouTube. Just look up Grindhead Jim. If you find a channel that's just called Grindhead Jim in the URL, that is my channel, but that's not the channel that you should be going to. The one, it's GHJ Streams, I believe it is. But if you just do the search, it'll pull me up the right channel. And I have some videos coming up talking about some of my grapples with depression and the psychology of how. Because I originally was going to talk about that first, then drop the bomb that I'm changing format. And I thought, nah, better to drop the bomb first and then explain why. So I gave him like the content reason in that video. So now I'm going to be having one about. I was
thinking that's where it was going first. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with some depression and anxiety.
Yeah, and that was I have a title card that I teased. I haven't released that video yet. It's sitting here. I'm waiting to see if I'm going to rewatch it and see if I didn't miss something. And if I did, I'm going to re-record it or whatever, and then it'll go out. It'll go out soon. I'm not going to promise when. It'll go out when it goes out. But then I have a long list of ideas that kind of cycle around. It goes a bit deeper. Like some of the stuff I've talked about on the channel on the TGL live shows about conceptualizing and the psychology and the esoteric and etheric reasons that we collect. Yeah. from a different approach to kind of what you do with these one-on-one sessions, is talking about more as a community. So I have that stuff coming up. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to keep doing TGL every Monday. And unless something unforeseen occurs, I do plan on TGL coming back this Monday.
Okay. Well, everybody can find me here every Friday unless I'm, sick or, I decide to do something different. Doubt I will, though, but it's not like I'm going anywhere.
Godzilla willing, you'll be here a long time, pal.
Yeah, except for Joe Fest weekend. I won't have one that weekend because I will be at Joe Fest.
I'm going to be at the DFW Joe show.
This will be the first thing that I have left my home for overnight since my son was born, and that was 14 years ago. Because of his autism, it's too difficult to do it. I can't.
I get it.
There's lots of moving parts, and I have to have somebody that I really trust with him, and that he's okay with and doesn't attack. And
I get that, but it's awesome that you're going to be able to do that because it'll be a recharge your batteries thing. Have you ever been to a big show like that before?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
Some other time, I would love to talk to you.
Plenty of live events, but I haven't been to crowded. I'm gonna have some moments of some irritability. I already know that's coming.
Absolutely. If you're ever interested, and I've been to a lot of these types of things, and if you want like a primer of what to expect from that kind of that perspective, I'd love to talk to you about it. I know there's others that would love to help too.
Well, I appreciate that, Jim.
It's true. You always have something insightful to say.
Yeah, I try. But tomorrow night I will likely be on with Oz on our weekly clubhouse. I will see. I'm planning. Last week I was planning to be on it, and then I just felt like garbage on Saturday, so I did not do it. And I've got stuff that I need to open, so I really have to show up because I really need some of these boxes to be emptied and put away.
I have no idea what that feels like.
Yeah, it. There. Do you see this?
Yeah, I get it.
That is all of my stuff that needs to be opened and put away.
And this is all of mine.
So that's just what's in here. This doesn't include the others.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay.
So
fair enough.
Yeah. No, I gotta do something because it's making me crazy.
I understand for sure. You obviously know that. So
yeah. I mean, I have all my desk toys, but they're taking up space, so they'll have to move somewhere too. But with that, I want to wish everyone a good weekend and remind everyone, if you can be anything, be kind. Have a good night.